Good morning, happy Tuesday, Promo Tuesday. This week we are sponsored by number theory. Number theory is one of my favorite fields of mathematics. I'm really excited that they got in touch with us. For those of you who don't know, number theory is all about the study of integers. Integers, of course, being positive and negative whole numbers, including zero. So the integers seem kind of boring, but really they're the foundation of everything else that we do in math and by extension, science. Especially in our modern technological era, integers are incredibly important because they include the study of the prime numbers. And those of you who don't really know a whole lot about how your passwords and your data on your devices are encrypted, I'm sure that's a word you've heard, encryption, that's all based on prime numbers and using huge prime numbers to kind of throw off anyone who's trying to guess those prime numbers, which serve as keys for your encrypted data. So of course, it's a lot more complicated than all of that, but I don't pretend to even remotely be an expert on it. But really, number theory is just a fascinating field. So they're excited to partner with us. They are giving you our biggest discount yet, 50% off with the code PRIME, P-R-I-M-E. That'll be down in the description below. So feel free to use that and get yourself some number theory, okay? Let's jump right into our lesson. Good morning, happy Tuesday. All right, so today is our second day of culminating activity review. Reminder, you do have an exit ticket that'll be due by midnight tonight. Your culminating activity is due this Friday for seniors and next Friday for juniors. In addition, all retakes should be completed by this Friday for seniors. So again, you can email me, set up an appointment if you want to retake anything. All right, so yesterday we reviewed units 1 through 3. Today we're going to look at units 4, 5, and 6. Now remember, unit 4 was split over two different units, 4a and 4b, but really it was just one long unit looking at trig functions at their most basic. So the first thing you need to know is the unit circle. Know the unit circle, know it by heart, know it perfectly, and that will help you evaluate the trig functions. So if we're evaluating trig functions, remember that our sine function is the y-coordinate, cosine function is the x-coordinate, tangent is y over x, and then we have the reciprocal functions. And if we're getting more and more specific, okay, if we're not talking about the unit circle, then that denominator isn't just 1, so we call it r, the hypotenuse. Okay, now graphing trig functions, I'm not really going to ask you to graph a trig function from scratch yourself, but as you see on the culminating activity, I do ask you to sketch a graph based on a function. Okay, now remember, it's in the same form as all of our other functions. And their transformations. So this right here is our amplitude, our vertical stretch or compression. So that's how tall the wave is from the midline. This right here was our midline shift. So is the wave starting or centered around 0? Or is the wave centered around a different midline? Maybe it's centered up here. This b right here changes the period. Remember, the period of a function is 2 pi over the absolute value of this number. And then this right here is a horizontal shift. We call that a phase shift, and it's the opposite of what you'd expect. So that's just its most basic, sketching the graph of a trig function. And then of course the inverse trig functions are just going backwards. If I give you a coordinate, can you tell me what angle produces that trig value? Unit 5 was all about oblique triangles. So here you should really just remember the law of sines and cosines. This doesn't necessarily show up on your culminating activity, but in the future, these are important skills to know. Remember that the law of sines is set up like this, where the numerators are side lengths and the denominators are the sine of our given angles. And then our law of cosines, of course, if you ever need to use this, you do have this on your reference sheet. And there's 3 forms. We should be able to manipulate these if we need to, but that's the first of the 3. All right, so just useful things to know. And finally, for today, Unit 6, everyone's favorite, analytic trigonometry. We should know those trig identities. So all of those are available here on your reference sheet. The very bottom of the front are some of our most used. And then on the back, there's a few more that we've looked at from time to time. Being able to simplify and verify identities with those. Solving trig equations really goes back to knowing our inverse trig functions. Remember, our goal is always to isolate the trig function, and then we can take the inverse of it to solve. Polar coordinates. Okay, so really just being able to go back and forth between standard form of a complex number and polar or trig form of a complex number. And all of the formulas to go back and forth there are found on your reference sheet right here. Trig form of a complex number. There is one question on your culminating activity that deals with this, and in fact, number 4E, after you actually do some math, asks you, why do we care about putting complex numbers in polar form? Okay, I'm going to answer that for you right now. So, lucky you, you've been paying attention, you've been watching these videos, you're about to get an answer to this question that other people won't likely get. Okay, so number 4E, why do we care about putting complex numbers in polar form? It's a lot of work, it's kind of tedious sometimes. Well, operations on complex numbers, they tend to be easier in polar form. So if we want to multiply them, raise them to a power, find their roots, etc., it's a lot easier to deal with those operations if our complex numbers are in polar form. So that's why we change them. So here's our answer to that question on your culminating activity. So lucky you. Try not to share this with those who aren't watching these videos. And that's about it for today. So again, join the Google Meet if you need more detailed help with any of these specific concepts or those questions on your culminating activity. Complete today's exit ticket by midnight tonight, and then work on retakes and your culminating activity by this Friday. Okay, again, reach out if you need anything, and I'll see you later. All right, that was today's lesson. Sorry, AP Calc. I know that was kind of a lot. Oh well. So let me know if you need anything. Join the Google Meet. Make sure you're working on your culminating activities, and I'll see you on Thursday.